Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose, and there's a very intriguing story going around today that a lot of people are absolutely freaking out about. There is a notable game that may skip out on Xbox, or at least temporarily, but the reason as to why is what's causing a big conversation online. However, there is more context to this story, and we're going to get into all of that today, as well as a potential leak for the Nintendo Switch 2. One of its first-party games may have leaked out a bit early, and all I can really say here is that Nintendo fans are once again going crazy about a new July Nintendo Direct. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go and get right into things, though, and I want to go and start off with a correction from my previous video. Yesterday, we talked about Fallout Bakersfield, which is a fan-made Doom mod to recreate or to reimagine the original 1997 Fallout experience as a first-person shooter. However, it's not recreating the full game like I previously thought. The sources that I was reading did indicate that was the case, but it's been pointed out to me that it's actually only a section of Fallout, being Necropolis, hence the name of the game, Fallout Bakersfield. So that does make sense in retrospect, but yeah, it's not quite as big as I previously thought, and I definitely don't want to go out and spread a bunch of misinformation. Even still, though, I still think that this game looks incredible, and I still think that Xbox and Bethesda should take a look at it to maybe help fund it. They can maybe even make it a bit bigger and to bring it to all platforms if possible. They did that for Spartan Survivors, and I mean, I think this looks a lot better than that, and something that a lot of fans would really enjoy if given the chance. So the easier it is to access, I'd say, for the better. Now, moving on here, though, Pokemon Presents opened up the day with a wave of news, though honestly, it wasn't really as good as I was initially hoping for. There really wasn't a one more big type of announcement. It was mostly various smaller updates for shows, and there were some mobile updates for games like Pokemon Go as one such example. Surprisingly, though, they didn't reveal the new set for Pokemon TCG Pocket, which is very strange given its success. You would think that they would want to show it there in a big way, but regardless, the new set actually leaked right after the showcase. It is based on the Johto region with Pokemon like Lugia, Ho-Oh, Umbreon, and Espeon. They all have an EX, and Umbreon looks broken right now. Its ability is basically a free Cyrus. If you play that game, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I'm sure people are going to cook up some cool strategies with that, and it does seem like they're trying to make multicolored energy a little bit more consistent. So the meta will likely change quite a bit once again with this new set. Their big reveal, however, was for Pokemon Legends ZA. They showed off some of its new Mega Evolutions, which are still by far the coolest evolution gimmicks the series has to offer. I really hope they return to Mega Evolutions for the next mainline game. But yeah, Dragonite got a Mega Evolution, which I think looks pretty cool. Not everybody likes the design, but personally, I do. Other than that, though, the Nintendo Switch 2 will get a Pokemon Legends ZA bundle this holiday, as, I'm sure a lot of Pokemon fans are going to buy into the Switch 2 by the end of the year, especially if ZA turns out to be a good game. Now, we also got a brand new game reveal today, and its trailer is pretty graphic, to say the least, so I'm going to opt out for some images instead because YouTube doesn't exactly like when games are overly graphic. Blame YouTube, not me. But this is for Hellraiser. This is an old horror franchise that started back in the 80s. It still actually gets some new films to this day, which really, just kind of speaks to its long-standing iconic status. Now, I'm going to be honest, I've never really watched any of the films myself. I didn't grow up as a big horror fan, but people are getting very, very excited about its game reveal. It does look pretty good, and it's being described as a single-player survival horror where you play as a guy who was trying to save his girlfriend, which was taken by Pinhead. And I mean, it looks very spooky. It looks very gory, and if you like the Hellraiser series, it at the very least looks impressive enough to at least keep on your radar. Now, unfortunately, there's no release date as of yet. Maybe we'll get an update at Gamescom next month, but I will drop a trailer in the description below. Definitely go check it out. It will come to Xbox, PlayStation, and PC at some point. Once we get an updated release date, of course, I'll let you all know. Okay, so let's go get into the story that seems to be blowing up online. Everybody seems to be talking about this and, what did he possibly mean by his comment? And we are going to get into all of that today because there is more to this story. So what's happening here is that the CEO of Moon Studios, which, if you don't know who they are, they're the creators of the Ori franchise, which is a first-party series for Xbox. Keep that in mind. Now, personally, I believe those are all-time great Metroidvanias, but the thing is that for the first time, Moon Studios is working on a new project without the help of a publisher. They acquired No Rest for the Wicked earlier this year from Take-Two, and they're still working on it in early access. So it's only on PC for the time being, but they do want it on consoles as well. However, this is where the story starts to take a turn because the CEO, Thomas Mahler, recently said, by the way, given current market conditions, we might only release on PlayStation 5 and potentially Switch 2 for the time being. We'll have to discuss things with Microsoft to see what makes sense for Xbox. And this blew up online because what exactly does he mean by market conditions? A lot of people just automatically assumed the worst here, and there was speculation that he was essentially saying that an Xbox version isn't worth it unless Xbox pays for the port themselves. Now, I didn't really take it that way personally, but some people definitely did. Now, I do think that this decision is a little less straightforward than what Thomas Mahler is suggesting, which I'll come back to that here in just a moment. But Thomas Mahler elaborated on his comment via NeoGAF. He wrote, "Folks, can we drop the conspiracy theory insanity? If NeoGAF becomes more and more like the Purple Forum, don't be surprised if people stop posting here as well." Yeah, shots fired there, but he continued on, "No, it's not a shakedown. It's called common sense. What our community has been wanting the most is co-op and console support, so we want to fulfill those wishes as soon as humanly possible. We're already hard at work on co-op so people can play Wicked in multiplayer pretty soon. And after that, the idea is that we'll release 1.0 sooner than initially expected so that we don't have to deal with the hassle of being an early access game on consoles. Wicked is already in a pretty great state, so by the time we exit early access, we'll be golden. And in order to get there fast, we'll first support the platform that has the most users purely out of resource reasons. We're a comparatively small independent studio, so doing a console port at the quality level we want is not a small task. Porting to Xbox means porting to Xbox Series X and Series S, and that'll take more time to optimize compared to porting to PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 5 Pro. So we're most likely going to do PS5, PS5 Pro first, and launch there in order to make fans happy and supply other ports later. That's literally all there is to it. And yes, we'll need to discuss with Xbox and Nintendo what the best strategies are to support their platforms and their features in the best way possible, and that'll be an ongoing discussion. So there's nothing to see here. It's just common sense with us having to make the right moves, given the resources we have, while making sure we give players what they want as fast as possible. So there it is. This wasn't a shot at Xbox or anything like this. This wasn't a shakedown. It's just a small independent studio being forced to make tough decisions based on their limited resources. The PS5 obviously has a bigger install base than Xbox, and for the time being, it also has a bigger install base than the Switch 2 with it just now launching, hence their logic to prioritize Sony's platform first. He also alluded that it'd be easier to develop for PlayStation, which that's something to keep in mind given that they are a smaller studio. Though I will say, I'm not 100% convinced that this is the obvious decision to make regardless of his comment. And the reason I say that is because Moon Studios isn't really established on PlayStation in the same way that they are on Xbox. Regardless of its smaller user base, they were brought to stardom on Xbox thanks to their work on the Ori franchise. So Xbox fans knows Moon Studios more than any other console fan base. So this really kind of reminds me of Cliff Bleszinski years ago when he prioritized the PlayStation 4 over the Xbox One when he launched Lawbreakers. Again, the PS4 had a bigger install base than what Xbox had, but Cliff Bleszinski had a lot more fans on Xbox than he did on PlayStation, given his work on the Gears of War franchise. So even if Xbox has a smaller install base, there is still that deep connection that fans have to the studio, and that's where, you know, I think that his decision is probably a little bit more difficult than what he is saying here. However, from everything that he wrote, it seems like No Rest for the Wicked will eventually make it to all platforms, and that's truly great news to hear. It's just kind of a test of patience by this point. I do wish them the best because I think they're a great studio. I love the Ori franchise, and I hope No Rest for the Wicked turns out to be a big hit as it draws closer to its full release. I mean, if it turns out to be even half as good as the Ori franchise, then, I mean, yeah, it'll be pretty great. Okay, now, one more thing before we go. We potentially have a Nintendo Switch 2 leak to talk about because it appears that a new Fire Emblem game could be on its way because a LinkedIn page was recently discovered for a 3D character modeler that revealed that they had worked on a sequel for a Nintendo strategy RPG for the Switch 2 as a contractor. I mean, there's not really a ton of Nintendo strategy RPGs. Only two comes to mind, one being Advance Wars, and the other being, of course, Fire Emblem. So unless it's connected to a completely unrelated franchise, unless they turn Zelda into a strategy RPG or Mario, which technically they do have Mario plus Rabbids, but we know that's not happening. So yeah, Fire Emblem makes a lot of sense, especially given its success last generation. Fire Emblem quickly became a staple franchise for the Switch 1, and truth be told, there's already been a lot of rumors as is about a new Fire Emblem game. I think the main reason that this page is specifically popping off the way that it is because fans really, really want a July Nintendo Direct. And there's hope that this could indicate not only a Nintendo Direct, but also a Fire Emblem reveal. Now, if there is a July Direct, I'm not convinced that Fire Emblem will be revealed, or at least based on this specific information. But what I will say is that I 100% believe that a new Fire Emblem game is in development for the Switch 2. I think the bigger question is whether the first Switch 2 Fire Emblem game will be a remaster of sorts, or if it'll instead be a brand new title, because we have heard a lot about a genealogy of the Holy War remake. I actually hope that turns out to be true, but whatever the case may be, yeah, I 100% expect a new Fire Emblem game at some point for the Switch 2. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.